Hi, and welcome to the Agreeable Gray Area podcast. It's a podcast where we talk about the parts in our lives that aren't so black and white. I am your host, Elle, and thank you so much for listening. So, this is the first episode. I Today is technically July 21st, 2022. It's after midnight on the East Coast, and I decided to record this because why not? I'll admit I am not sober, but I am not totally wasted to the point that I don't know what I'm talking about, so I think I can record a podcast. It's honestly been something I've been wanting to do for a while. Like, I recorded the intro, like, I don't know how long ago, but this has been something I've been wanting to do for a while now, so I am happy to be here. Anyways, I wanted to talk about living life in what I like to call a life loop. Not exactly a time loop, but but like a life loop where you keep telling yourself you're going to do something next week or, the following Monday, and then you don't. And then you just keep doing that over and over and over again until, I don't know, forever. It's honestly one of my biggest fears. So, a little backstory to me is my mom used to live with me. Like, be careful, like, be mindful of that. I didn't live with my mom, even though, of course, I did. But, a few years ago, my mom lived with me. She moved in with me. I was already living by myself for a few years, and then she moved in with me. She left my father, thank God, and moved in with me. And I had, like a front row seat to her, to my mom, to see how she is and everything. And it wasn't it wasn't so surprising how she was because I already, of course, knew her. And, like summer vacation and, like, moving back home after college, I got to know her pretty well in terms of like, kind of like how she was. But, the entire time she was married to my father. She was with my father. So, of course, like we're all living under the same house. So it was a little different. However, when it was just her, I got to just really focus on her, observe her, and get to know her, my mom. And it was very interesting. One thing that I definitely noticed was she would pretty much do and say the same things pretty much every day or almost every day. Like, for example, and this has been something that she would do even while I was like in college for sure. She would lose her phone. She would lose her cell phone every fucking day. Every fucking morning she would lose her phone. Like, I would go away to college, not hear anything about this, and then when I was home for spring break, summer vacation, winter vacation, what have you, I'd be sleeping, she would be getting ready for work, and she'd wake me up to tell me to call her phone every morning without fail. And I got to a point where I stopped doing that because as soon as I would fully wake up, pick up my phone, and start dialing her, she would be like, "Oh, I found it." So I stopped calling her. I stopped calling the phone to help her find her phone. Not like I stopped calling her completely, but I stopped calling her to help her find her phone. And when she moved in with me, for a while it was pretty much the same kind of shit. Like, she would always lose her stuff. And it pissed me the fuck off because how as a grown woman, you have multiple children. I am the last of 7. She has multiple children. How the fuck do you lose shit all the fucking time? And she would just do like pretty much everything. If it was an important document, don't even think about giving it to my mom. She would lose it. And she would just blame the devil. She would always be like, "Oh, it's the devil. The devil is keeping this away from me." And it was so fucking frustrating because like she could never just take responsibility for herself. Like, you misplaced it. You misplaced it. Like you are a scatterbrain. You couldn't take care of a particular document and put it in the right place. And I'm not saying that I'm the most organized person on the face of the earth, like far fucking from it. I am not organized. I'll admit that. However, if it's an important document, I know where it is. It's like in one of 2 places for me personally. But for my mom, she will have absolutely no idea where an important document is. Not a clue. Not the slightest clue. Like not even a hint, nothing. She would just have no idea where an important document is. She could have printed it. It could have been a 300-page document, and she would lose it. And it's absolute, and it was like, and that's just how it's been my entire life. She just lived in this lifestyle of just constantly losing shit. And she would just constantly blame the devil. It was absolutely frustrating. And yeah. So to get back to yeah. So like I've just decided, and once again, I'm not the most organized person. However, I decided to just not be like that. I've known people who are constantly misplacing shit. Personally, it bothers me. It's a massive turnoff. Like, I had a roommate in college who would constantly lose shit too. She'd be so distracted by whatever she was talking about that she would just place her phone somewhere, her cell phone, and totally forget about it. I couldn't do that. Granted, of course, I was not dating her, so it wasn't, like the biggest thing. However, like it was in those moments when I realized, like, yeah, I couldn't date a man who who just constantly misplaced shit, because it reminded me too much of my mom. Because my mom would just be so distracted by everything, even if it's like the smallest of things. She would be so distracted by everything that she would just misplace shit. And if you asked her later, it's like, "Oh, where is this thing?" Or she would ask you to call her cell phone because she misplaced her cell phone. And it like, yeah. So, right. And I mean, that's just like one of the qualities of my mom, where it just sort of made me realize that there's just certain aspects of people that are just never going to change. My mom has these 2 wooden chairs that she's had. I can't even remember prior to when she's had them. She's had them for fucking ever. And since for fucking ever, she has always said that she's going to sand these chairs and spray paint them. She's always like, "Oh, they're good wooden chairs. They're real wood. I'm going to do something with the chairs. Mind you, I have never seen my mom be one of those artsy, do it yourself, refurbishing people. Never. Never in my entire life have I ever seen my mom do that. But I guess in her head, she's always seen herself as that type of person. And it low-key kind of scares me because there's types of people in my head that I see myself as, if that makes sense. Like I imagine myself as a certain type of person, or, I'm doing something and this and that, yada, yada. Pretty much one of the reasons why I'm starting a podcast for sure, but at least, for my credit, I'm doing it, not successfully, not as much as I would want to. However, I am doing it. I'm not just saying I'm going to do it. I am actually doing it. So I guess that's +1 for, for the home team, me. But I've never seen my mom be like a do-it-yourself person. I've never seen her, create like a, what's it called? I can't even remember. She's never been like artsy. My mom's never been artsy. I've never seen her pick up a paintbrush. I've never seen her pick up like spray paint. The only thing I've ever seen her paint is the walls in her home. Like not her current home, but where we all live together. Like I've seen her paint, some of the walls, and that's it. That is it. I have never seen her be artsy and creative in that way. However, I guess she still sees herself as this artsy, creative, do-it-yourself, refurbishing person. And I'd be lying if I didn't see myself as, I don't even know what to call it, like a creator, a creative. I see myself as that. I've always have. I've tried to get away from it. However, it keeps coming back to me and haunting me, and it's just sort of like where I need to be. But I've always tried to stuff it down and pretend that that's not the case when it is. I guess who you truly are, you really just cannot deny it. And I am some sort of creative. My mom, however, maybe she is. I have never seen that. It would be great to see. I would love to see my mom be like a creative person, because it would be very inspiring to me. But I have yet to see that. But she sees herself as that. She sees herself as someone who is going to go to Home Depot and buy spray paint and spray paint these chairs that have been around almost as long as I have. And it would be great to see her do that. However, it's just I don't see her doing that. So I guess what I wanted to say is, I see my mom living this, what I call a life loop, always saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And the weekend, I'm going to do this. On the weekend, I'm going to do this. On Monday, I'm going to do that. And I've never seen her do a lot of the things that she says she's going to do. I can't even tell you what she has done since I've been alive. Of course, be a mom and raise her kids and everything, of course. And, she's been phenomenal at doing that. I'm not taking that away from her at all. What I am saying is, what makes her an individual? What makes her her? Because, of course, it takes skill to cook. And of course, it takes love and patience to come home after a busy day of work. a hard day at work and to still cook and feed her kids, especially like, the amount of kids and everything, and also to like deal with schoolwork and whatnot. Even though my dad was in the picture, he just didn't make himself reachable, if that makes sense. Like he would always just sleep on the couch or go into his room and sleep or what have you. Like he wasn't really like present, which is massively fucked up. And yeah, I'm glad that they divorced because he was a piece of shit. But I guess what I'm saying is I never really saw my mom like love herself, like do things for herself. I never really saw her go out on the weekends doing things, hanging out with friends or anything. Go on vacations, really. She'd always just say she's going to do things like next year, next week, next month, and then just never do it. And like, yeah, we're all guilty of that. I'm guilty of that for sure. But after a while, I get sick of it and I just end up doing the thing. Like, I have to get out of the life loop because I know that the life loop isn't rewarding. Like, no one's going to take you out of the life loop. You have to take yourself out of it too. Of course, like, there are certain things like a routine that, help with your life, your lifestyle, your mental health, your well-being, of course, that we need to hold on to. For example, like working out however many times a week, eating healthy however many times a week, depending on how, like whatever you define as healthy or clean or whatever. Like just routines, cleaning, of course, doing laundry, showering, bathing, cleaning yourself, cleaning up, whatever it is. Of course, we have to do these things regularly in order to just take care of a home and function. But I'm talking about the things outside of that. Your hobbies, your passions, the things that keep you wondering, like, hey, this seems cool. I want to try this. Or what if I actually did pursue XYZ? Or can I still pursue XYZ now? The things that keep you thinking. I remember in college, I had this professor. He was my advertising professor. And he lived in South Florida like I do, and he went to Florida State like I did. And he decided to, I guess get his doctorate or whatever and his PhD and start teaching at Florida State. But one of the things that he said was, you don't want to wake up 20, 30 years in the future, because mind you, we were like late teens, early 20s at the time. So, like in your 40s and 50s, you don't want to wake up, go to the bathroom like you normally do, look in the mirror, and think, what if? Think, like, you don't want to look yourself in the mirror and wonder if you lived the life that you wanted to live. Like, yeah, you might be married. Yeah, you might have like a decent job. You might have some kids. You might feel like you have a purpose. And hopefully, a lot of you listening actually do feel like this is your purpose. And I'm really happy for you if that's the case. I'm more so talking to those who had that nagging feeling all of their lives. Who had that yearning to create something, who had that curiosity to put their thoughts out there, to put their work out there, to put their art out there and see what could happen, to see what kind of different life they could possibly live. I'm talking to them because I'm one of them too. And whenever I see my mom constantly saying, "Oh, I'm going to work on this thing next week. Oh, I'm going to work on this thing soon. It's like, oh, I can't stand this side of myself, this part of myself. I'm going to fix it." And then she does jack shit all to fix it. That's my biggest fear. Because to actually witness that and to actually see it in person makes my skin crawl. It's not a pleasant thing to see. I love my mom dearly. I love her to the moon and back. I truly do. It just scares the shit out of me. Me personally. Leandra, L, whatever you want to call me. It scares the absolute living shit out of me to be in her 40s, 50s, 60s, what have you, in the future, and thinking, what if? Thinking, oh, what if I did actually pursue this thing? What if I actually lived my life linearly rather than in a loop? What if I did things for myself? What if I actually tried to make myself happy rather than make myself content? What if I actually said how I felt rather than dealt with the bullshit? What if I actually believed in myself and didn't try to stuff my feelings of anguish and discomfort down? What if I didn't try to just push that away, those feelings away, and actually confronted them and tried to change things to make myself feel better? We have this belief that we have to live in a weird state of anguish, like a slight anguish, a slight discomfort, a slight unhappiness, because when we try to live our absolute happiness, our absolute true selves, people get upset, and we don't want to make other people upset. But if there's one thing that I did learn, as honestly I learned it from a manga, I can't even remember what manga it was, but it stuck with me for so many years. It's that you cannot truly be happy without making other people unhappy. There's going to be people who see your successes and want to crush it, who want to bring you down to their level. And we all know this, whether, intrinsically or not. And it kind of scares us to actually pursue the things that we actually want to do in fear that we might like it. And this goes for a lot of different things, whether it's hobbies, sexual pleasures, like job opportunities, anything. When we try to better ourselves, we gain haters. And sometimes those haters are our friends, are our family, And we don't want to disappoint them. We don't want them to feel bad. So we lower ourselves. We try to not reach to the utmost peak that we possibly can to make them feel better, to make them feel okay with being closer to the bottom, with them feeling okay in their misery, in their anguish, in their despair. People say the top is so lonely. That's not true. The top isn't a mountain peak, especially not those like cartoonish mountain peaks that's just like a, like a freaking like acute angle that can only fit like one person on like one leg. Many people can reach the top. There's space for everybody because your top doesn't look like my top. Your top is different. Your peak is different. We all have mountains that we're trying to climb, that we're trying to conquer. Your mountain isn't my mountain. Your happiness isn't my happiness. We all have space up here. We all should be trying to uplift each other. But instead, we try to bring each other down. We try to create more company within misery rather than creating company within abundance, within happiness, within joy, within pleasure, within true contentment. I don't know if that's a word. True content. We diminish ourselves. We look down on ourselves. We punish ourselves when that's not necessary. And it's a little hurtful. And I feel like I see my mom, like she finally left my father, thank fucking God again. And I see her trying to figure out what actually makes her happy. I see her trying to be her true self. And I honestly couldn't be more proud of her. Growing up, people would, when you ask, like, who is your hero? People would always say their mom, their parents, blah, blah, blah. Admittedly, I never saw my mom as my hero. I never did. But after 30 years, I can finally say that I can truly see her as my hero. Because it takes a lot of courage to leave comfort. It takes a lot of courage to leave what you already know. She was with my dad for nearly 40 years. 40. And she finally left. And I couldn't be more proud of her. She left thinking that people would judge her, thinking that whatever, that it's a sin, that she should stay and deal with the impossible bullshit that my father required because he was getting old and he's just shitty. Like I will explain it later probably in another episode, but it's just great to know that she's finally living for herself. She's finally figuring out who she is. And of course, it's a massive adjustment. But I couldn't be more proud of her. She finally left her life loop. She's out of the loop. She's out of that fucking forever circle of the same old bullshit. She's out and seeing things differently. And it is an absolute beautiful thing. So, after 30 years, I can finally proudly say that my mom is my hero. Anyways, I'm going to close this podcast. Very random episode. I do want to thank you all, of course, for listening. And yeah, I am just going to post it as it is. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for listening.